I can feel my finger frozen on the radio button. The dust cloud is still rising 300 meters ahead, where that donkey cart just exploded. My earpiece is screaming static. The convoy behind me, 17 vehicles, 43 men, brothers I've eaten with, laughed with, bled with, is rolling forward at 40 kilometers per hour, completely exposed on this dirt road between two compound walls in Helmand province. I have exactly 7 seconds before the lead vehicle hits the kill zone. Maybe 6 now. My brain is processing 1,000 details simultaneously, the way that pressure plate detonated too early, the suspicious absence of civilians who should be flooding out to see what happened, the fresh disturbance in the dirt 50 meters ahead that everyone else missed, the unusual height of that compound wall to my right. Every instinct I've developed over 14 months in this hell, every pattern I've memorized from 72 previous IED incidents I've investigated, every gut feeling that's kept me alive when smarter men died, it's all screaming the same thing. But what I'm about to do violates every rule in the book. My commander will court-martial me if I'm wrong. I'll destroy my career. I'll be the laughingstock of the battalion. 5 seconds now. The standard protocol is clear. Stop the convoy, dismount, sweep forward with metal detectors. But that's exactly what they want us to do. I can see it now, the whole trap laid out like a blueprint only I can read. 4 seconds. My hand is shaking. I can taste copper in my mouth. 3 seconds, I make the choice. I key the radio and scream the most insane order I've ever given. Full speed! Do not stop! Punch through! If my story resonates with you, please hit the like button to bring a little light to this father's heart. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my upcoming life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. It makes me so happy to know what corner of the country or world you're listening from. I'm Jake Martinez and I'm 35 years old now, sitting in my small apartment in El Paso, Texas, looking at a photograph of men who trusted me with their lives. Most people think war is about weapons and tactics, about firepower and technology. They're wrong. War is about patterns. It's about reading the invisible language written in dust and silence, in things that should be there but aren't, in details so small that 99% of people walk right past them to their deaths. I learned to read that language in the worst classroom imaginable, the roads of Helmand province, Afghanistan in 2011, where the Taliban had turned every kilometer of dirt into a potential grave. This is the story of 7 seconds that changed everything. 7 seconds where I had to choose between following orders and following my gut. 7 seconds that separated 43 funerals from 43 men going home. They gave me a Bronze Star for valor afterward, but what they don't tell you in the ceremony, what they can't write in the citation, is how close I came to being court-martialed instead. How the difference between hero and fool is sometimes just a few feet of dirt, and the willingness to trust something you can't explain to anyone else, not even yourself. I grew up in the desert heat of El Paso, so close to the Mexican border that I could see Juarez from my bedroom window. My father worked construction when he could find it, my mother cleaned houses, and I learned early that nothing in life comes easy. I joined the army 3 days after my 19th birthday in 2004, not because I was patriotic, though I learned to be, but because my little sister needed braces and my parents needed help with rent. The recruiter promised me a skill, steady pay, and a way out. What he didn't mention was how that choice would put me on a dirt road in Afghanistan 7 years later, responsible for men's lives, making split-second decisions that would haunt me forever, whether I got them right or wrong. They assigned me to Route Clearance Platoon 3rd Squad, which sounds technical and boring until you understand what it really means. We were the unit that drove ahead of every convoy, the ones who found the IEDs before they found everyone else. We were the tip of the spear, except the spear was made of flesh and the enemy was invisible and patient and willing to wait weeks for the perfect moment to blow us to pieces. By 2011, the Taliban had transformed IED warfare into a dark art form. They were killing more American soldiers with homemade bombs than with bullets. They studied us, learned our patterns, adapted faster than we could. They knew our procedures, our tactics, our standard responses. They weaponized our own doctrine against us. My platoon sergeant was a Georgia boy named Staff Sergeant Curtis Wilson, a man who'd survived 3 tours and had a wife and 2 daughters waiting for him in Savannah. He was the one who first noticed I had a gift for reading terrain. "Martinez," he told me during my 2nd month in country, "you see things other people don't. I don't know if it's those desert eyes of yours or what, but you spot disturbances in the dirt before our metal detectors do." He started putting me on point more often, trusting my instincts. I didn't know then that this trust would put me in the position to make the most important call of my life. The Helmand province in 2011 was a landscape of death disguised as normalcy. Farmers worked their poppy fields, children played in compounds, donkeys pulled carts. And underneath it all, buried in the earth like seeds of destruction, were thousands of IEDs waiting to erase you from existence. The Taliban controlled the night and contested the day, and the roads, those narrow dirt arteries connecting forward operating bases to villages to cities, were their favorite hunting grounds. Route Irish, the stretch of highway we patrolled most frequently, had earned the nickname Death Road for good reason. In the 6 months before my story begins, Route Irish had claimed 14 American lives and wounded 47 more. We ran convoys down Route Irish 3 to 4 times a week, supplying remote outposts, transporting personnel, showing presence. Each mission was identical in procedure but unique in danger. The Taliban never attacked the same way twice. They learned, they adapted. They watched us respond to one trap and designed the next one to kill us when we followed our own rules. That's what made them so deadly. They were fighting asymmetrically, using our discipline against us. We had to follow doctrine. They could improvise. We had to be right every time. They only had to be right once. I started keeping a notebook, writing down details of every IED incident I investigated. The depth of the hole, the type of pressure plate, the direction the blast went, the timing, the location of civilian populations before and after, the weather conditions, the time of day. I filled 3 notebooks with observations that probably seemed obsessive to anyone else, but I couldn't help it. I was looking for the pattern behind the patterns, the meta-language of how they thought. My bunkmate, Specialist Devon Williams from Detroit, used to joke that I was turning into a Taliban whisperer. "Martinez is going to dream in IEDs," he'd laugh. He wasn't wrong. I did dream about them. I dreamed about the details I'd missed, the signs I should have seen, the men who died because someone didn't notice that one thing that was wrong. By October 2011, I'd developed a reputation in the battalion as the guy with the best eye for spotting disturbances. Other platoons started requesting me for their missions. I didn't feel proud of this reputation. I felt the weight of it. Every time someone said, "Martinez will spot it," I heard the unspoken corollary, "And if Martinez doesn't spot it, we die." That's a heavy thing to carry when you're 26 years old and you still think of yourself as just a kid from El Paso who got lucky with pattern recognition. But I took the responsibility seriously because I knew what failure looked like. I'd seen it. I'd photographed it. I'd written it in my notebooks. I'd attended the memorial services. The day everything changed started ordinarily enough, which should have been my first warning. October 17th, 2011. Temperature was already hitting 95 degrees by 9 in the morning. We were tasked with running a supply convoy down Route Irish to combat Outpost Hansen, a small firebase 15 kilometers south of our FOB. 17 vehicles, 5 MRAPs for route clearance, 8 supply trucks, 4 Humvees for security. 43 men total. Staff Sergeant Wilson was commanding. I was in the lead MRAP with our driver, Corporal Tommy O'Brien from Boston, and our gunner, Private First Class Marcus Washington from Atlanta. We'd run this exact route 17 times before. I knew every compound, every turn, every suspicious section of road. We rolled out at 0930 hours. The sky was that washed-out blue you only see in desert countries, pale and dusty and infinite. The first 8 kilometers were uneventful, which made me nervous. In my notebooks, I'd documented a pattern. When the Taliban wanted to hit us hard, they'd let us get comfortable first. They'd let us roll through easy terrain until we relaxed our guard, and then they'd trigger the ambush where we were most vulnerable. I was scanning constantly, looking for the signs: fresh dirt, disturbed stones, absence of children who should be playing, dogs that ran away instead of barking, all the tiny details that screamed danger to someone who knew the language. We were approaching the section I thought of as the Narrows, a stretch where the road ran between two high compound walls for about 200 meters. Limited visibility, no room to maneuver, perfect ambush terrain. I'd flagged this section in my notebook as high probability. I told Wilson over the radio, entering the Narrows, everyone sharp. The convoy slowed to 30 kilometers per hour, standard procedure for high-threat areas. That's when I saw the donkey cart. It was positioned on the right side of the road, about 300 meters ahead, just at the entrance to the Narrows. An old man stood beside it, adjusting something on the cart. Normal sight. We'd seen hundreds of donkey carts, but something was wrong. I couldn't articulate what yet, but my gut was screaming. I told O'Brien to slow down more, 20 kilometers per hour. I was studying the old man, the cart, the compounds on either side. Then I saw it, or rather, I saw what wasn't there. There should have been children. This time of day, this section of road, there were always children playing near these compounds. I'd noted it in my notebook. Morning, 6-8. Children visible near compound 17A. But today, nobody. The compounds looked empty, windows shuttered, doors closed. That's when the donkey cart exploded, not when we were close to it, not when we triggered a pressure plate. It detonated early, while we were still 300 meters away. The blast was huge, probably 100 pounds of homemade explosive. The old man disappeared in the fireball, the cart disintegrated. A mushroom cloud of dust and debris rose into the air. My mind was already processing, too early, wrong timing, deliberate detonation. Not pressure plate, someone triggered it remotely, which means someone watching, which means we're in the kill zone already. I looked ahead through the dust. The road through the Narrows was still there, clear. Standard response protocol was automatic in my mind. Stop the convoy, dismount, sweep forward with metal detectors to make sure the road is clear before proceeding. But I was seeing something else, something that made my blood run cold. The dust was settling, and I could see a faint disturbance in the dirt about 50 meters ahead, a line across the road, too straight to be natural, fresh enough that morning wind hadn't smoothed it yet. Pressure plate, command wire, something. And then I saw the second wrong thing. The wall on the right side of the Narrows was higher than it should be. I'd driven past this section 17 times. That wall was 7 feet high. Today it looked 9 feet high. Someone had built it up, recently. Fresh mortar visible between the top rows of bricks. My brain started connecting the pieces faster than I could speak them. The early detonation wasn't a mistake. It was bait. They wanted us to stop. They wanted us to dismount and move forward on foot to sweep for IEDs. And when we did, when we were packed together in the Narrows, dismounted and vulnerable, they'd trigger the real device, the one buried under that disturbed dirt line, and they'd open up with machine guns from behind that newly heightened wall. We'd be trapped. 43 men in a 200-meter kill zone with no cover, no room to maneuver, facing both an IED and automatic weapons fire. It was the perfect trap. Sophisticated, patient, designed specifically to kill us when we followed our own procedures. I had maybe 10 seconds to make a decision. Follow doctrine, stop, dismount, sweep, and walk right into their trap. Or do something insane, something that could get everyone killed if I was wrong. Something that would definitely get me court-martialed if I was wrong. The convoy was already slowing down behind me. Wilson's voice crackled on the radio. Martinez, assess forward, prepare to dismount sweep team. That was the order. That was the procedure. That was what we were trained to do. I looked at that disturbance in the dirt, at that heightened wall, at those shuttered compounds. I thought about my notebooks. I thought about every pattern I'd learned. And I thought about 43 men, and the families waiting for them. I thought about Wilson's 2 daughters. I thought about O'Brien's mother in Boston. I thought about Washington's fiancée who sent him letters every week. I thought about all of them, and I knew with the certainty you can't explain or justify or defend in a court-martial that if we stopped, we died. 7 seconds now. My hand moved to the radio. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. I could taste adrenaline, metallic and sharp. 6 seconds. Every fiber of military training was screaming at me to follow procedure, follow doctrine, follow orders. But louder than that was the voice that had kept me alive for 14 months, the voice that could read the invisible language written in the desert. 5 seconds. I made my choice. I keyed the radio, and I screamed, and I mean screamed, voice cracking with urgency. Full speed, do not stop, punch through now. 4 seconds. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then Wilson's voice, confused. Say again? 3 seconds, I yelled louder. They want us to stop, it's a trap, full speed through the Narrows, now. 2 seconds. I could see the lead vehicle of the convoy behind me hesitating. 1 second. Then O'Brien, bless him, stomped on the gas. Our MRAP surged forward. 40,000 pounds of armor accelerating on loose dirt. 0. We hit the Narrows at 60 kilometers per hour, faster than we'd ever taken that section. I was wrong about the timing. I thought we'd pass over the pressure plate too fast for it to trigger effectively. I was partially right. We hit it at 50 meters into the Narrows. The blast went off directly under our right rear wheel. The explosion was massive, felt like the hand of God reaching up from hell to swat us. The MRAP lifted, twisted, slammed back down. My head cracked against the roof despite the helmet. Washington screamed in the turret. O'Brien fought the wheel. We were still moving, barely. The right rear tire shredded, but the run-flat insert keeping us mobile. Smoke and dust everywhere. Ears ringing. And then the machine gun fire started, exactly as I'd predicted, raking across the road from that heightened wall. But we weren't where they expected us to be. We were past their optimal kill zone, moving fast, and the vehicles behind us were accelerating too, following my insane order. The next 20 seconds were chaos, pure, unfiltered chaos. More IEDs detonated as the convoy punched through. They'd planted multiple devices, a daisy chain designed to destroy us if we'd been moving slowly and methodically like doctrine dictated. But at speed, most of them detonated between vehicles or behind us. The machine gun fire continued but couldn't track us effectively. I could hear RPGs launching, the distinctive whoosh, but they were missing, hitting empty road where we should have been but weren't. We were through the Narrows, all 17 vehicles, hauling ass down the road, damaged but alive. I counted the vehicles on the radio as they emerged from the dust. 17. All accounted for. Not a single vehicle lost. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it when I think about it now. We didn't stop until we reached Kop Hansen 15 minutes later. When we finally halted, and I climbed out of the MRAP, my legs almost gave out. The adrenaline crash hit me like a freight train. I looked at our vehicle. The right rear quarter was a twisted mess of shrapnel and burned paint, 6 inches more to the left, and that blast would have killed all of us. O'Brien was pale and shaking. Washington climbed down from the turret with blood running from his nose, where he'd smashed his face during the blast. Wilson came running up to my position, and for a moment I thought he was going to punch me. His face was red, veins standing out on his forehead. Martinez, what the hell was that? I tried to explain, but the words came out jumbled. The pattern, the early detonation, the missing children, the fresh disturbance, the heightened wall. It sounded insane even to my own ears. How do you explain that you saw something nobody else saw, that you read a language nobody else could read, that you knew with absolute certainty that following the rules would kill everyone? Wilson stared at me for a long moment, and I thought my career was over. Then he did something unexpected. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me, not violently, but firmly. "You saved us," he said quietly. "You crazy son of a bitch, you saved all of us." He'd seen it too, he told me later. Once we were past the kill zone, he'd looked back and seen the multiple IED craters, the machine gun positions, the carefully constructed trap. If we'd stopped and dismounted like procedure dictated, we'd have walked right into a slaughter. The EOD team went back 6 hours later with air support and drones. What they found confirmed everything I'd suspected and more. 11 IEDs in total, arranged in a sophisticated daisy chain through the Narrows. 4 machine gun positions with interlocking fields of fire behind that heightened wall. 2 RPG teams positioned on the rooftops. The Taliban had planned this ambush for weeks, studying our patterns, learning our procedures, building the perfect trap. The early detonation of the donkey cart was meant to stop us. The apparent cleared road ahead was meant to lure us forward on foot. And then they'd trigger the main devices when we were clustered together, dismounted and vulnerable, and open up with everything they had. The EOD commander estimated that if we'd followed standard protocol, casualties would have been catastrophic. Probably 35 to 40 KIA, he said flatly. This was designed to wipe out an entire convoy. 35 to 40 killed in action, almost everyone. The entire unit gone, families destroyed, all because we followed the rules they'd learned to weaponize against us. The next few weeks were strange. The battalion commander called me in for a debriefing. I had to explain my decision multiple times to multiple officers. Some of them looked at me like I was a hero. Others looked at me like I'd just gotten lucky and shouldn't be rewarded for violating procedure. There was talk of an investigation. Had I endangered the convoy by ordering them to accelerate into a potential minefield? Had I overstepped my authority? But Wilson went to bat for me. So did every single soldier in that convoy. They wrote statements. They testified that if we'd stopped, we'd be dead. The investigation was quietly dropped. Instead, they gave me the Bronze Star with V device for valor. They had a ceremony at the FOB. I stood at attention while some colonel I'd never met pinned a medal on my chest and read a citation about extraordinary heroism and decisive action in the face of enemy fire. The whole time I kept thinking about those 7 seconds, about how close I came to staying silent, about how easy it would have been to follow orders, to trust the doctrine, to let someone else make the call. Wilson told me something afterward that I've never forgotten. We were standing outside the TOC at sunset, smoking cigarettes. I didn't smoke before Afghanistan, but some habits you pick up when you're trying to cope with the weight of staying alive. He looked at me and said, "You know what the difference between you and a dozen dead specialists is? You trusted your gut over the manual. Most guys can't do that. They're so afraid of being wrong, so afraid of breaking the rules that they follow orders straight into hell." I asked him if he'd have done the same thing. He thought about it for a long time, staring at the red sky. "Honestly, I don't know, I hope so, but I don't know. That's why you got the medal, Martinez. Not because you were right, though thank God you were, but because you had the balls to make the call when it mattered." The rest of my deployment was different after that day. Other platoons requested me even more, but I felt the weight differently. Before, I'd been afraid of missing something, afraid of not seeing the danger. Now I was afraid of something else, afraid that next time I'd be wrong, that next time I'd make an insane call based on a gut feeling and get everyone killed, that the pattern I was so sure I was reading was just paranoia or luck or chance. Every mission became a test of whether I could trust myself. Every convoy was 7 seconds all over again, deciding whether to follow the rules or follow my instinct. It was exhausting. I started having nightmares, not about dying, but about being wrong. About screaming punch through and watching every vehicle behind me explode. About Wilson's 2 daughters losing their father because I thought I saw a pattern that wasn't there. I finished my deployment in March 2012 and came home to El Paso. My family threw a welcome-back party. My little sister, the one whose braces I'd helped pay for, hugged me and cried and told me she was proud of me. My mother kept cooking my favorite foods and watching me with worried eyes. My father shook my hand and said nothing, but I could see it in his face. He knew I'd seen things I couldn't unsee. The Bronze Star sat in a box in my closet. I didn't frame it. I didn't display it. Sometimes I took it out and looked at it, and thought about 43 lives and 7 seconds, and the impossible weight of making choices when there's no time to be sure. I got out of the Army in 2014 after 8 years of service. I work now as a construction supervisor. Turns out the same pattern recognition that spotted IEDs makes me pretty good at reading blueprints and solving logistical problems. I bought a small apartment here in El Paso. I have a girlfriend who's patient with me when I wake up at night, sweating, replaying those 7 seconds. I'm doing okay. Better than okay most days. But I think about that day constantly. I think about how war isn't really about courage or heroism or any of the words they use in medal citations. War is about impossible choices made by young men who have no business making them. In situations where there's no right answer, only less wrong answers. It's about trusting yourself when everything you were taught says you shouldn't. It's about reading patterns in chaos and hoping you're not just seeing what you want to see. And it's about living with the knowledge that you got lucky. That 7 seconds could have gone differently. That one wrong guess, one misread signal, one misunderstood pattern could have meant 43 flag-draped coffins instead of 43 men who got to go home to their families. I think about Wilson's daughters. They're in high school now, he sends me pictures sometimes. And I think about how close they came to growing up without a father. I think about O'Brien's mother in Boston and Washington's fiancé, and all the people whose lives would have been destroyed if I'd been wrong. Looking back now from the safety of my apartment, with traffic sounds from the El Paso streets filtering through my window and a cold beer in my hand, I can tell you what I learned in those 7 seconds. I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust yourself, when everyone and everything is telling you not to. That courage isn't following the rules. Sometimes courage is breaking them when the rules are going to get people killed. I learned that war is less about weapons than it is about patterns, less about strength than about seeing what others can't see, less about heroism than about split-second decisions that you'll replay in your head for the rest of your life. I learned that every man who comes home from war is carrying invisible weight, and the weight isn't just about what happened to him, it's about what almost happened, what could have happened, what would have happened if one choice had gone differently. I learned that you can be given medals and citations and recognition, but the only thing that really matters is that the men who trusted you made it home. Everything else is just noise. If I could tell you one thing, it's this. Trust your instincts, especially when they're screaming at you to do something that seems crazy. Because sometimes the crazy choice is the only one that makes sense. Sometimes survival means doing exactly what you're not supposed to do. And sometimes 7 seconds is all you get to decide between life and death, between following the manual and following your gut, between being court-martialed and being a hero. I got lucky that day. My gut was right. But I still wake up sometimes, heart pounding, thinking about those 7 seconds and wondering what would have happened if I'd hesitated, if I'd doubted myself, if I'd stayed silent and let doctrine decide. 43 families don't have to wonder. That's enough. That has to be enough. Because in the end, war doesn't give you certainty. It doesn't give you time to be sure. It gives you 7 seconds and a choice, and you live forever with whichever one you make.